Your hosts, Landon and Jade, are a married couple of 17 years and counting, are here to give you a swift kick in the ass. There will be some tough love, but we are here to support you to the greatest life you can have. We will bring the sarcasm and humor. You just bring yourself. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Back Roads to Us podcast. Today we're going to go over our top 10 mistakes to avoid for a happy marriage. We're only going to go over the top 5. If you want to see more on the rest of them, go over to our blog and you can read about them. So let's get into it. So the number 1 is criticism. This is criticizing your partner. That usually starts with being negative towards them, complaining all the time, and then that moves into criticism, which criticism usually the sentences always include you always or you never. So let's get an example here. Maybe let's say I want Landon to take out the garbage, and I keep telling him to take out the garbage, but he doesn't take it. So I could say, Landon, you didn't take out the garbage today. That really upset me. Can you please do it tomorrow or tonight or whatever? Now, when I criticize you, I'm going to say, you always ignore me. You never take out the garbage. Like, it just escalates it to another level. And so I think if you start seeing yourself being negative or complaining towards them, you know that next level is going to be criticize. Now, let's look at that. If I'm doing that to you, and if I'm saying, well, you never do that, you always do this, how does that make you feel when I do that towards you? If I do that.
Maybe more that I'm just going to probably keep doing it to irritate you.
Oh, really? Okay, that's good to know. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I don't know. I guess, it can get, you don't know one ever wants to be criticized. Everybody makes mistakes, does stuff wrong. So, when you get to the criticizing thing, it more becomes like a belittling. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where you got to just be careful how it comes out, how you portray it, how you verbalize it versus, you always can tell somebody to do something by asking versus telling or ordering. You can ask for help and it gets what you want versus, giving an order. There's no sense in us two giving each other orders, and we're in this together type thing. So you don't need to be barking orders and telling you this is what you will do, but asking for help and asking, hey, would you please take out the garbage? It's like you're asking, but you're also telling me that's what you want me to do by asking, and it comes off a lot easier.
Yeah, I think when everyone goes to their jobs, they may have stressful days at work, or they're always being told what to do. And so when they get home and the first thing they hear is, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, it's really going to be hard to want to do that when it's like, man, I just walked in the door and all you're doing is telling me everything I didn't do. And that will basically turn you off from, like you said, not wanting to do it. Because it's like, oh my gosh, this day was long and I come home to you. My home was supposed to be my safe and happy place, my relaxing place. And I walk in the door and I'm getting bombarded with yelling, basically. And I think, like Landon was saying, so criticizing people, especially your spouse, like you said, feels like belittling. And no one likes to be belittled because that makes you feel, it makes you feel dumb. It makes you feel worthless. It makes you feel unappreciated. And I think let's look at the other side of that. So the person who's doing the criticizing and the belittling, is it because that's just their personality? I think sometimes that comes off when people are spoiled little brats. They've been catered to their whole life, or maybe their family is that way that they just expect you to do something, and when you don't, they get all angry about it. I think that could be one way of it. Or maybe the other thing is they've been asking you and asking you and asking you, and this is the 5th time, and the person isn't listening, so now they're just starting to get mad because they don't know how to verbalize a way to get you to understand. You think?
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of hard to know 100% what someone's thinking or why they are not doing something or why it's not clicking or maybe it's not being explained. I don't know, in a manner that it's clicking to them. It's kind of hard not to explain how to, take out the garbage. It's pretty self-explanatory. That's just one example, but that could be a whole variety of things when you're married, what you're asking someone to do. It could just not be clicking because, hey, I didn't explain it the way that, it's coming off to you. It may make sense to me, may not make sense to you. There's a whole wide array of things that could come up with that. You got to just make sure that you communicate well so that it doesn't turn into getting to an irritant and then become into a form of maybe you are belittling someone and you don't understand you're doing it. And it may come off. Now you could have said, "Teen, take out the garbage," and it may have come off kind of rude or kind of offensive to you for some reason or whatever it is. And so maybe that person's like, well, I'm not going to do it because I'm being told to do it instead of asked to. And there's could be a whole wide array of things that could come up to, or taking out the garbage is very minor thing. It could come to with anything is in like just housework in general, I guess. Most guys you talk to think that's the woman's job. Well, we both work. You come home and no one wants to sit there and do housework or clean the house. So we have a day we do that, and certain things get cleaned all the time just because that's just the nature of whatever it is. But housework, we both kind of have our things we do. And it's just helping each other out instead of me telling you, hey, you need to do this, or you telling me I need to do it. It's just realizing that, hey, maybe it's that other person needs some help, and maybe it's the form of just maybe realizing it so that I do it without being asked. And then it doesn't become into a belittling thing because I just did it.
Yeah.
If you walk by something and say it needs done, I don't know, it could be house needs vacuumed or the dishes or the garbage or just whatever it is needs done, maybe just do it. And then there's no asking, no telling, no, hey, you didn't do this for the past 3 days or whatever. We have that. Sometimes it happens. We get a little irritated because something's not being done, but on the flip side, you could just do it instead of waiting for the other person to do it.
Yeah, and I think along with that, I think you need to realize that some days your significant other is just going to have a bad day. Maybe they're just irritated about something, or maybe you just irritated them. I don't know. But don't let one thing, if it's not a continuous thing, or maybe it just happens every often, but don't let that one thing just set you off. I think sometimes you can allow that one issue of they didn't do something for you that maybe you expected. Maybe you didn't ask, but you didn't.
Yeah, but I think I said it in another episode, but there comes a point where you got to realize that marriage isn't 50-50. It's some days it's 80-20, some days it's 70-30. You come home from work and you had a bad day and things aren't doing good. So if you only got 30% that night, then maybe I need to pick up the other 70.
Yeah.
And that happens the other direction as well, because I could have a bad day or whatever, but sometimes 50-50 just doesn't work. Like sometimes you need to pull more than your partner does, and it will happen the other direction. It's going to happen. You can't get around it, and you need to be willing to do that. It can't just be if you're not feeling the 50-50 day, I'm going to do what I do, and if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then it's just not going to get done. Well, it has to be done, and sometimes you're not feeling it or whatever. You're sick. You've had a bad day. There's a whole thing, a bunch of things that could go wrong or make you feel not wanted or appreciated. So maybe I need to vacuum and do the dishes and do whatever we got to do with the dogs that day instead of you doing the dogs. I got take care of the dogs. I get up early, I feed them, whatever. Just because the 50-50, it's really tough because not everybody's feeling it 100% all the time.
Yeah. Just like this morning before we went to the gym, I slept in. You got up and you took care of the dogs, got them fed and whatever. Didn't wake me up, and it was the realization that you woke up early, but I would hope you realized that it's been a long, stressful week, and so I wanted that little extra hour of sleep instead of when I wake up and be like, well, you slept in. So it kind of makes you feel like crap when it's like I didn't. It not
does,
a common
and
thing.
and I seem to make a joke a lot, like you take care of the dogs a lot because when I get up for work, it's too early. I can't feed the dogs at that time. They're asleep. They're not getting up. And then if I'm on a different shift, I'm not here to feed them dinner, or I'm still asleep in the morning when you get up because I got home late or whatever. So, it's always a joke as well. They're not my dogs. You feed them, which I mean, yeah, it's a joke, but you seem to do it more than I do just because you're around when I'm not. So There are some days on the weekends, you sleep in. It's like, okay, well, it's my turn to get up and get the dogs just because that's something I'm going to do because you're tired or whatever. It's just pitching in back and forth. I could stay in bed or I could get up and not do it. And had you get up and be like, well, did you feed the dogs? Like, no, they're your dogs. That's your job or whatever. Do that thing and just not do it because that's not my 50%.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's part of what you normally do. So it's like, they're not your dogs, but there's certain things in our house that you do and there's certain things that I do. So I could just say, I'm not doing it because that's one of your chores. So, or I could get up and say, yeah, you know what, today I'll take the 60% and I'll do that extra 10% and feed the dogs just because you're tired and you want to sleep. It could go that way. And then then it turns into an argument. I could say, well, why didn't you get up and feed the dogs? And then it comes off as rude. And, then maybe it makes the entire Saturday just a bad day.
Well, yeah, and I think that's actually kind of great because that leads into our number two, which is superiority, which can lead to contempt on that. Because the superiority of that statement, let's say with that, where you're like, well, no, that's not my job. That's your job. Like, there's this superiority complex of, I'm not going to lower myself to do that. Or, superiority can come into the thing of name calling. It can be, eye rolling. You can mock the other person. You can have not the good humor, but that hostile humor towards somebody where it's just the rude
Well,
sarcasm.
it's a humor, but there's a hidden meaning
There's
behind
an
it.
edge to it.
Like it may come off as like you're trying to make it as a joke, but there really is something behind it. Like you usually can tell, when that comes off. You gotta, in a relationship, realize that nobody's better than the other person. You're in it together. You're both
Yeah.
married, so help each other out. Don't be mean. Don't You can't be the name calling. You're not superior. You're not better. You don't get. I don't get something that you don't get. Like if we decide to do something, say health wise or whatever, I don't just get to do it and not you. We always seem to work out something where if we're buying something, whether it's a supplement or whether it's workout equipment or whether it's something, we buy it so that we both can do it. Make sure we buy enough servings or whatever it is for the both of us to try. And if you don't want to, that's fine. Then I'll just do it, or you'll just do it if I'm not wanting to do it. But I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. So we work it all out together, and we chip in to do whatever it is together. Whether it's chores, whether it's fun, whether it's finances, doesn't matter what it is. We're not better than each other.
So if a husband does that, he has a stay-at-home wife. She takes care of the kid, cleans the house, all that kind of stuff. And then when he comes home and maybe she's had a rough day. The kids have been just brats all day long, and she could use a little bit of help to get the kids dinner. And you are just like, no, that's your job. You stay at home. You take care of the kids. Well, your ass is home. You can help. It's been a long day. They're your children too, but the superiority of that's not mine. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
Like it's
and
just that
I think
complex
you
of
got to realize that if you're a stay-at-home wife and your husband works, yes, it is a job taking care of the kids, take care of the house and all that stuff. It is a form of, that's what you do. That is your job. Your husband goes to work, so part of your responsibility is yeah, well, if you stay at home, then I can see where your husband would expect it when I come home, I expect the house to be clean. I get you took care of the kids, but maybe they're at school during the day. You've got time during the day to do it. I expect, maybe dinners every night at 6 o'clock, well, whatever it is, expect that to be done. Now, like you said, if you come home, she's doing her job all day, take care of the kids, take care of the house. Maybe something went haywire in her day and she needs help with dinner. Okay, we'll help her out. Well, in our situation, it's different because we both work. So when you come home and I come home, there are things to do that we both chip in to do because we both work. Not one of us stays home. We're both gone during the day. Neither one of us wants to come home and do housework or do any of that. But it's got to get done. So then we chip in and just do it together. Yeah, I help out with whatever we need to do in the house. And we got 2 bathrooms in the house. You clean one, I clean one. You're dusting and I'm vacuuming, or I'm doing the laundry and you did the dishes, whatever, so it's, you're helping each other out. It just leads to too much of that contention if that doesn't happen.
well, yeah, because I wouldn't feel good if I'm sitting there. If you're sitting on the couch, we both get home from work. You're sitting on the couch, playing on your phone, watching TV, and let's say the house is a mess, and I'm cleaning. I'm doing the dishes because for me, cleanliness not necessarily calms me down, but I have a really hard time with coming down at the end of the night if the house isn't clean or, not like spotless, but put together. The blankets are put away, the dog's toys are picked up, dinner's put away. I can't physically shut down to calm down unless that's done. So before I go to bed, I gotta write everything. And if something's really bad, then I take a little bit longer. So if I see you sitting there and this, uh, let's say you go to bed and you leave all your stuff on the coffee table or you leave your blankets out, that's almost like a slap in the face. It's like, I need this. It takes you 5 minutes to put your stuff away, which is just part of being clean. Just do it. And you do. We've gone through that and we joke about it because I'm kind of a neat freak on that kind of stuff. But you see that and you put your stuff away.
Well, and I put my stuff, try to put away because like you said, being a neat freak, but like I've got, certain places I like my stuff.
Yeah.
And that's always how I know if you've done something because it's moved. Like I know exactly where it is. Like, where's this? Where's that? Where's my flashlight? This, or where's my pocket knife, or where's my keys? Why has it been moved? Because it sits right here. So it's been moved because you touched my stuff. I don't understand why you moved it. So yeah, I try to put it away because there's somewhere where I like it. If I need to go get it, I know where it is. Like it's here. So if I go there and I go to find it and it's not there, it's like there's only one other person in the house. So where'd you put my stuff? Like I don't understand why it's been moved, or whatever. So it helps. I don't know. It's just one of those things where you have to it's part of getting along and it's part of, just making it work and not having a hostile environment at home because that should be your safe place and the place where you come home to relax and the place where you can talk about whatever. And if you're always into that belittling and not helping each other out and always barking orders because you think you're better than this person because you went to work and made the money or whatever it is, there's never any calm. It's always contention.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, let's go into our number 3, which is blaming. With a lot of that, when you blame someone for your own problems of, someone didn't do something, so you're the reason why I'm unhappy. You're the reason why this isn't getting done.
Or you ruined my life or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you're not giving me what I want out of my life. There comes a point where you got to take a step back there and say, take some ownership in it and say, hey, what am I doing that's causing this? Or what am I doing that's making me be unhappy? Because it's not always someone else's fault. Now, could it be a little bit? Yeah. But take some ownership in what you're doing, and maybe it's my fault. Maybe I'm causing the contention. Maybe I'm causing the bad attitude because you've always got a bad attitude. So, you can't be one of those people that's always down all the time and causing that negative behavior because that negative behavior it's contagious. Mm-hmm. If you're around it all day, that's what you're going to be. So you can't let that get you.
No, and I definitely have seen that in our marriage because I'm going to say I was a blamer because I didn't want to admit that I was the problem. I didn't want to admit that the reason why you were snappy at me was because I was snappy first, or I hadn't been talking to you that day, or I wasn't giving you what you needed. And so I had to step back and take ownership of the problems that I was causing. Now, did it escalate? Did you maybe take it to the next level? Maybe, because you were so unhappy with what I was doing. But it started with me, the problem.
Well, and part of when you figure some of this out as a couple is because, see, I have the personality where if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it worse.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to get even. I'm going to top it. Just, I don't know why. But like, if you're going to be rude, I will be ruder. I will find a way to be ruder. I'm not going to just sit there and take it. Like I'm going to make it a point to let you know that you are this way and this is what you're going to get in return. So, and a lot of things like that doesn't happen if I'm not trying to get back at you. Not that I should do that, whatever, but there's different things in the house and we make a joke. I don't know why this always keeps in the back of my mind, but we had that instance when you decided to break the mower.
I did not break the mower.
Broke the mower. Like, she mows the lawn one time, and I come home next weekend to go mow the lawn, and I start picking the mower up, and something's broke, and it's not working, or whatever. And it's like, well, it wasn't this way when I put it up, whatever. She's like, I didn't do it. And there's only one other person in the house. Like, I didn't break it, so if I didn't break it, who broke it? You mowed the lawn last weekend, and the motor's broke. The drive motor is broken. Like,
I don't know what I did.
It just didn't just happen. But the funny thing was it got put away that way, broken.
Seriously, I don't.
And I'm like, well, I sure as hell didn't do it. So there's one other person that used the mower last weekend. And it's like, and then you ask about it, wasn't me, and look around like, yeah. So it's just, and it's a joke now, but before it's like, well, now I can't mow the lawn. It's like, if you'd have said something, I could have had it fixed or bought the part or whatever. But those are, it turns into being kind of funny or whatever
Now.
now, whatever. But some of the other stuff, blaming someone for other things going on, that becomes more like of an emotional thing or more of a intimacy thing when it comes to you and her. That seems to affect your marriage more than just like a broken part or whatever. That all can be bought and fixed and whatever. Yeah, it may happen in the moment where you're arguing about it, but that's easy to come through because it's inanimate objects. It's a lawnmower, it's a weed eater, it's a door ding, or I don't know, just something. But when it comes to making your significant other, blame them for something that happened in your day, like your day went bad and your significant other comes and asks you a question and it spurs something from what happened in the day, and you're deliberately rude and you're blaming them for the problems that weren't them. It was a problem that happened at work or problem that happened over the past week, and it's just building up, and your wife had nothing to do with it, but they're the ones that are getting the brunt of it because you're with them at night. That's where it starts to become harder on your marriage.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that, like if you're coming home from work and it's been a really bad day, and that when you come home it's probably maybe be a little chaotic. Maybe you have kids and stuff, that you're going to run around, and your wife and your kids, or just your wife and your dogs, they deserve your love and attention. Even though you've had a bad day, they still deserve that little bit. So maybe you need to take a few minutes and drive around the block for a minute and just kind of talk yourself down and be like, okay, here we go. I need to get myself in the right space for it. Or tell your wife before you come home, hey, it's been a really long day. I need this from you. Like, I'm sorry if I don't feel like talking tonight. Give them a heads up of, this is what I'm dealing with. Can you please help me in a
Yeah.
way
And the
that helps it
better,
so no one's blaming each other for, God, why did you have to do this? It's been a really, and you're making it worse. You
well,
need
and
to tell them.
the longer you're together, and the more you understand that without that having to be explained. Like, I had a bad day. This is what happened. And I just know, hey, you need some time just to like chill out for a minute. You just know that versus having to be told because you've been together long enough. With us, it's different. We don't have kids. Like, we have 3 dogs now. I don't know how many people. There's a lot of people have dogs, but understand that that there's nothing in the world that will love you more than itself than a dog. You can beat the crap out of your dog, okay, and 30 seconds later, the dog's your best friend. Like, the dog will always love you. So when you come home, yeah, your dog is going to be ecstatic. They're so happy to see you. Their tail's wagging, and you don't want to bring off that negative attitude towards them because they're just happy to see you, and they just want to be pet or said hi to or whatever. And it's just that you get that bad aura running around you, and the dogs can tell. And if you're with your significant other long enough, and maybe you don't even have to be with them that long, you can sense that like something's off. They're just in a bad mood. They don't want to talk, or maybe the first words are out of their mouth, a little snippy, and you're like, oh yeah, they've had a bad day or whatever. But it's you. Everybody in your house can feel it, whether it's kids, dogs. I don't know what your situation is. So you just got to make sure that you come home and try to be the most positive you can, because, like I said before, don't destroy or hurt your atmosphere in your home of being a safe place.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think let's go into number 4, which is failed repair attempts. So that would be in conjunction with what you were talking about. Um, if you have had an issue, continuing, let's say it's you come home and you have a bad attitude, but you're you've snipped at your wife, you guys get mad, and this is something that continually happens because the job you work at sucks. So let's say you tried and told your wife, said, hey, you know, tonight, can I just have a little bit of space? I'm just having a really bad day. And the wife is going to say, maybe the first time is, yeah, okay. Well, the next time you ask, she's like, I just don't understand why you do that. I don't understand. And so you continually try to repair an issue or try to come up with a solution to the problem, but they keep failing because one or the other isn't fixing the problem. So maybe it's a common problem that comes up. Maybe you guys continually fight about it. Maybe you're bringing up the past issues that you've had because they're not getting solved. And if you do that one too many times, eventually it's going to be like crying wolf. They're just going to be over it. I'm done. You won't fix this. It's important to me and you won't fix it or listen to me or hear my problems. So I'm just done. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, we've had arguments in the past, and sometimes it's the same argument we've had, I don't know, three, four, five times, two times, whatever, and it doesn't seem like it's ever fixed. And it seems like when it comes to that, you know, multiple arguments about it, it seems to turn into more of a fight, and then we're mad for 2 or 3 days a week, and it ruins the whole vibe in the house and between me and you. So if you can do the best you can to explain whatever it is the first time and let them know that that's not something that you're willing to accept or whatever else, then you don't have to try to go through the issue multiple times and keep bringing up those same emotions that you've had 5 or 6 different times, because when that happens, those emotions build up. It's like, this is exactly how I felt the last time, and this is how I felt the last time, and you said you'd fix it and you don't fix it, and it keeps coming up. It hurts everything that's going on, just because those past emotions, when they're there, and then you get hurt from that past emotion, and then it does it again, you bring up the past emotion again, you bring up the past emotion again, and it seems to make you more unhappy, or madder and madder and madder, because you feel the same thing over and over and over, and nothing changes.
Yeah, and definitely I was part of a problem. So this is something that we dealt with. And I'm going to tell you that I think the core problem is selfishness on the person who isn't changing. Because I can definitely see that with me, is that he would tell me of a problem, and yes, I heard him, and yes, I wanted to change it, but I allowed myself to maybe talk, I don't want to say talk myself out of it, but I heard, I understood, but I didn't make the change because it wasn't as important, or I felt me and my feelings were more important, or whatever it was. But I feel like it was a lot of selfishness on my part, because it's like, well, I hear you, but I'm not going to change because I don't, maybe I'm too lazy, maybe I don't want to, or maybe it's easier to do this, so I'm selfish in my feelings. And then when we would have these problems again, yes, it would get worse and worse. Like the arguments would get more intense, more, not mean, but just, it was just more like a volcano. Finally, it erupts, and it shouldn't. It's very disrespectful. It shouldn't have ever got to that point. And I think that's kind of what finally would flip me. Is it's like, why am I allowing my husband to feel so upset and so hurt because I wouldn't make one small change? And they weren't huge requests. It was just making a
Like you said, I
change.
think the more hurtful part in that is when you say, yes, I understand, or yes, I understand the way that makes you feel, and then you deliberately don't change it, it makes that person feel not good, because your partner is telling you they understand and telling you they're going to do something, and then they just don't do it. So it's like, no, you didn't understand, because if you're going to tell me you're going to do something, then do it. Don't tell me you're going to do something to just end the conversation or end the argument because, hey, I'm going to do it. Okay, it makes me feel a little bit better. You're going to make a change and you understand why I'm upset, and then don't do it deliberately. It's like, well, then you didn't understand. You're just saying something to end an argument, end a conversation, so we don't have to talk about it anymore. And that makes that other person feel, I don't know, not heard or not loved or whatever. I guess it just depends on what that specific issue is. So if you're going to say okay, or you're going to say you're sorry, or you're going to say, hey, I'll make a change, then make the effort to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to make the effort to do it, then don't tell that person, hey, I understand. If you legitimately don't understand why it's making them mad, then don't say yes, don't say okay, don't say I'm going to change it. You need to ask more questions as to why that's making you feel that way, so that you can understand and possibly make that change. Because you may be saying okay, I'll make the change, but you may not fully understand why that makes that person upset. So you have no agenda or no reasoning to change it, because you actually don't understand it.
Yeah. And I think with my personality, and I'm sure there's others out there, but when you get into an argument and the other person's talking at you, like Lana's energy is very, very bold, very aggressive, and I can feel that. So when he comes in with frustrations, your energy is always very strong, and that's just who you are. But it was when I'm getting a confrontation or being, basically being told you're doing something wrong, I almost shut down. I have a really hard time hearing what you're saying because you're so passionate about what it is. And that's, like I said, that's part of your personality. And that's one of the things I love about you is you're passionate about things. I've had to learn as myself to internalize and be like, okay, you need to not take offense to what he's saying and how he's saying it. Listen to the root of what he's actually saying. Because if I pulled my emotions out of that and just said, you need to listen almost as an impartial observer and hear what he's saying, it was easier for me to hear you.
Well, yeah, it's learning how to deal with your partner, because like I've learned that the best way I feel like I get you to understand how I'm feeling is to flip the story. Something's going on that I don't like, and you're not understanding it, or say you haven't changed it because you didn't understand it. If we have the argument again or the conversation again, and I tell you, well, how would you feel if I did this to you? And then I see your face like, well, I wouldn't like that. But you're doing the same thing to me. So this is what I'm trying to get you to understand. If I did this same situation, the same thing to you, would you feel the same way I'm feeling? And then it seems to click, and it's like, oh yeah, I wouldn't like that, or that would make me feel this way. And it's like, okay, that's what I'm trying to get across to you is I don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like this, or I don't like this about it, or whatever the situation may be. But if I flip the story and turn it around on you and say, okay, I did it to you, how would you feel? It seems like you understand it better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of, and I'm sure there's different things that you talk about with me. It's part of learning that person, and me just saying, I don't like the way you do that, and you're not going to do that anymore, or you're making me feel this way. You may not understand why it's making me feel the way it's making me feel until we flip it and say, okay, say I did this to you, and I went into town and didn't tell you where I was, and come home an hour later, and you do that to me, and you come home and I'm upset because I don't know where you're at or what's going on or if you're okay. You don't understand why. I don't understand why I need to let you know where I'm at. Okay, so then next weekend I'm going to go into town. I'm going to do the same thing and come home when you're upset. Well, how come you can't let me know where you are? Okay, this is exactly what we were talking about last week. And like, this is why I don't like the way it makes me feel. So it doesn't mean you need to deliberately go and do the same thing to the person and make them feel bad. But maybe it's just a matter of having the conversation and flipping the script and just telling them, how would you feel if I did this to you? Because it may make the situation worse if you go do the act or deliberately go into town and not call her or whatever and just deliberately make her feel like crap when you could have got this all through a conversation versus actually doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think in our relationship, as much as it pains me to say, I think you are the better listener in a sense of you listen to what I say without me having to really say, like, have a really big conversation with you. I can even joke with you and say something about how you leave your water bottles, half empty water bottles all over. And if I make a joke out of it, you will actually, it's a joke, but you could actually see why I was asking it and you'll make the change. I'm unfortunately more of a hard headed and selfish individual, which is something I've tried really hard to work on. Because, like I said, you are so easy to make the change. Whatever you need, I'll do it. And I wasn't. I wasn't willing to take ownership of my problems. I wasn't willing to listen to you. I'm going to say I probably had a superiority complex, maybe, and just said everything was your fault, not mine. And so, honestly, in our relationship, I try to be more like you because you are just better at some of those things than I am. And I've learned a lot from you. And I think that's a great thing is that in a relationship, you can learn from each other. If you want something, maybe the one's doing something more of what you want, you can be that. You can change, you can learn from your significant other on what they're doing. And I've really, like I said, I've learned that a lot from you. Um, so let's go into our last one of the day. We're going to talk about lack of intimacy. I think this is a huge one, but I think the reason why some of that happens is maybe the issues 1 through 4 have caused you to have that lack of intimacy. If someone's criticizing you, if someone's name calling you, they're blaming you for their issues, they're not fixing their problems, who wants to be intimate with someone who makes them feel all these things? If there's no love in the way you talk to each other, there's going to be no love in the bedroom. And I think when that happens, when you realize maybe 1 through 4 some of these things are happening and you realize that your sex life has gone downhill.
Maybe you need to fix the top four.
Yeah,
And
look at
these
yourself.
top four may not be everybody's top four, but everybody's got going to have some things in their relationship that are always nagging at them, or they're always conflicting about it. So it may not be these top four, but it may be a three things in your relationship you need to fix to make the intimacy thing work. Because but maybe the last one, but it's one of the most important ones. If you're not intimate in your relationship with that person, you drift apart. Because see, like, you're very, very verbal with the words on the intimacy part, as far as how you talk. Me, I'm not. Like, I'm more of a physical or a touch type of person when it comes to the intimacy. So you display it different than I do. And if we're in having an argument, I just don't touch you, period. And it's just like, I don't feel connected. So that's how I portray the intimacy. So I can tell if we're having a bad day, or we're fighting with each other, we're not getting along, I don't touch. And that's just my way of just not showing it, because that's how I show it. You use the words, and you don't seem to use those words if we're fighting, or having an argument or whatever. So you always can tell when that's going on. The intimacy thing doesn't always just need to be sex. That's a huge part of it, but you can be intimate with, like you said, just touching the other person, or verbal, or sitting on the couch and hanging out. Or part of that is like date night. Like, every Saturday we go out to lunch, just being with each other, spending time with each other throughout the day, or whatever day you pick. Or, even if you got to schedule it because you got kids, like, make time to be intimate with that other person, to where you guys feel like you're wanted, like you need to be with each other. The other person loves you. So the date nights are good. We do a lunch date. We spend the day together, which leads to stuff later on in the night. It just makes you feel like you want to be together, because you go out to eat and you talk. You have a conversation about stuff you want to do, or you want to buy, or vacations you want to take. And it just makes you feel like you're with the person emotionally.
Yeah, because I think for me, and I think for you too, maybe not as much, but I have to be emotionally connected to you before I want to have sex, because I can't just jump into it. I wouldn't. I was never have been a one night stand kind of person, because I have to connect with that person. You can find someone as attractive as you want, but if I can't emotionally connect with you, it's really hard for me to get in that mode, because sex is an intimate thing, and if I don't feel safe or anything like that, I'm not gonna want to have it. And like you said, if intimacy doesn't just mean sex, it can be intimate in your thoughts and your feelings. It can be intimate in those certain touches. I can know if you're in a bad day, if I go to bend over and you don't slap my ass, you're having a bad day, because you're just a person who, when you walk by, you touch and you do that. And I really actually enjoy that, because I know that you're there. Even if we're standing in line somewhere, you'll touch my butt, you'll put your hand there. And I enjoy that, because it's like a connecting. We're right there, we're connecting. We have those small intimate moments that, it's not, we're not the ones in PDA who are out there making out and kissing. We actually don't really kiss in public. We don't do that. We don't hold hands a lot unless we're somewhere in a really crowded place. We have our intimate moments in different forms.
But that's the way it works for us. It doesn't mean that some other couple that may be the way they're intimate. They may hold hands everywhere. It's just we don't really show our personal intimacy, as far as like kissing, touching, that sexual intimacy, in public.
Yeah, we're private about it.
And some people aren't, which is fine. But it's just you got to find that way that makes you and her feel that way with each other. You got to find that connection. Just the little things we do, that's, I'm in a good mood, or, we're having a good time, or whatever. We're out, and the things that I do that you like, and the things you do that I like, it's one of those things where you do it and you understand how the other person's feeling without any verbal happening. And sometimes, like I said, with you, it's more of a verbal, which is fine. But there's just a lot of that if all of these things don't come into play, if things are that you may be not getting along in your relationship for other reasons, but you got to fix that if you're not having intimacy with your partner, because that will ruin things faster than anything. Because why else are you together?
Yeah, intimacy is a core thing, and if you're not getting your core needs met,
you originally were attracted to that person, which generally most cases, when you first meet someone, is a sexual attraction. That's why you thought they were pretty, thought they had a nice body. You thought whatever the ordeal may be, you were sexually attracted to that person in some form when you first met them. So that's number one. So you can't let everything get in the way of that form of intimacy, because you got to work on it, fix your other issues, make sure everything's, synchronizing at home, so that safe place is there, so you feel like you can be intimate with that person. If it's always hostile and I don't even care if it's your job. Like, I'm sorry, well, then get a new job. If you are that unhappy, do something about it so that you are not ruining what you have at home. There's no one too busy ever to do something. You can make the time, because if you want to do something, you will make the time. If you want to go hunting, you want to go fishing, you want to go to the gym, you want to go skateboarding, I don't know what your hobby is, but if you want to do it, you are making the time to do it. So you can make the time to be intimate with your partner and fix an issue. There's no way you can tell me you don't have time. That's a load of crap.
Yeah, and I think when you said that, I like more of the verbal things. Something that I always enjoy is if we go out, let's say we're going to go out to lunch or something, and I put on a nice outfit. I've learned that a lot of times you may not verbalize and say, "Oh, you look really nice." Usually I can see it, tell it by your face, but it's when we're out and you'll touch me a certain way or things like that. That's how I know that, yeah, he liked that. When you've been married for 17 years, sometimes it's a little hard to remember to tell your other significant other that they look good. Landon gets dressed, and I think he looks good every time. Do I say it every time? No. It's kind of like I expect him to know I think he looks good, but I don't ever say it. And then,
And that's something I think, I should work on too. It's because sometimes it's just nice to hear,
yeah,
and we, sometimes that the verbal part's the first thing that sends to slide and taper away, just because like the physical part's usually the thing that you want to stay, because that's sex. The touching, like most guys are that way. That's just how they just, display it or whatever. So you can't let the little things slide away, because that may be what's keeping the other person attracted, or keeping that other person coming back, or keeping that other person, because they like to hear the verbal comments. So it's don't let one slip, and don't let the other one overwhelm the other one either.
yeah. And if I want to know if I look good, I just walk in front of you and say, "Do I look good?" And you say yes or no. Well, you never say no. He's learned never to say no. But that's part of learning your partner. And sometimes you may want everything, and the partner you chose can't give you everything you want in the way you want it. And I think that's part of you have to accept the fact that by asking them to change, for them to give you a little bit, you need to give them a little bit, and compromise on, he can give me this, maybe not in the exact way I want, but he can still give it to me. And that's a big thing. That's a change. That's a way to help you feel seen and heard and understood, is by getting these little things, but not lowering your expectations, but changing them into a way that
You got to
you
make
can
sure
get
you
it.
do that together too. You can't be making these decisions and thinking, like you said, back to your superiority thing. You don't make the decision on your own, thinking you're better and you're going to fix everything on your own. You got to talk about it. You got to make sure you have a mutual agreement here, because say you're not happy because, I don't know, you want a new car and you can't afford it. Like, you don't think he's providing what you think he should. Well, if I go ahead and make the decision, well, fine. If that's the case, then I'm going to work a bunch of overtime. And then you're mad that I'm not home, or I'm not coming home on time. Well, I made the decision to work overtime to afford that car. So now you're not happy because I made a decision on my own. Now, maybe if we were to sit down and talk and say, hey, we could cut back on this and afford your car, but we got to cut back on this, or I can work overtime and we can afford your car. Let's make that decision together, versus just making a decision on your own, thinking I've got all the say, I've got all the power, I'm better than you, I will make the decision. Let's talk about it so we don't cause a problem at home, because there may be a couple ways to fix it. We could not go out to lunch every Saturday. We could not go buy this every weekend. We could, maybe we could afford something else, or yeah, I could work the overtime. But if I make that decision on my own and don't involve you, then it makes you feel not as superior or not as good or whatever, because this is the way it is.
Yeah, that's a lack of communication and assuming you're giving them what they want, but maybe they didn't realize that what they wanted
Yeah.
wasn't worth what you were doing.
Yeah. Don't assume. everybody's got a different way of thinking. Just because I think this is the best way doesn't mean it's the best way for us. You can't ever assume something's better, something's not as good without having a conversation, because I may see it completely different.
Yeah, and the rest of these, the rest of our top 10 that you can get on our blog kind of goes into a little bit of those. Number 6, we've got responsibilities. Number 7, being supportive. Number 8 is finances. Number 9 is quality time. And number 10 is outside opinions. All of those, the top 10 kind of go into what we feel would make a happy and healthy relationship. And like I said, this is just our top 10. Your top 10s may be totally different. They may change. So maybe as a couple, you need to make your top 10, I wouldn't, maybe don't say mistakes to avoid, but your top 10,
Reasons why you don't get along, maybe
Yeah.
reasons why you fight, write them down.
each of you do your own.
And maybe they mesh, maybe they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can sit down and maybe have a discussion as to, number 1 on our list matched. Number 2 matched, number 3 didn't. But maybe your list is different, and maybe it'll give you something to sit down and talk about and work through it. Because we've got 10 of them here. We talked about 5, but there's a way you can mesh the other 5 into the first 5 you talked about. Finances and with decision making. You've got outside opinions from other people, family. Quality time goes back into the intimacy thing. So all of these things I think can kind of mesh together a little bit. You can probably fine tooth comb them and individualize them a lot more, but everybody's going to be a little different and have different things to deal with. But the intimacy thing I think is number 1 important, but they all of these top 10 can conflict the intimacy part. So you got to do it the best you can to come through them so that you don't let that fall.
Yeah, I think that'll be our challenge when we end. Is if you feel like any of these things are your problem, why don't you create your top 10? Maybe your top 5. Maybe top 10 is a little too much. That's going to overwhelm the other person. Maybe just pick your top 5 issues that you're having or reasons that you feel you're not getting along. You're just your top 5 issues in your relationship. Why don't you write those down? Have your spouse do it, your partner do it, and then talk about them. That your 1 through 5s don't have to match. They don't have to be even numbered. You could just say, these are 5 issues I have, and your guys' could be totally different, but talk about them, work through them. Maybe there's things that you didn't realize that you were doing or that they didn't realize they were doing. It's an easy fix. It doesn't need to be this complicated, this hard, this difficult if you just talk about it and try that. Try that and let us know how it goes.
Right. But just make sure that when you write these down, you can't, when you talk about it, you can't go into the name or the name, I don't want to say name, the blame game.
Mm-hmm.
You list your issues. Don't sit down and say, hey, I don't like it when you do this. I don't like it when this happens, and blame that other person, because you're gonna start a fight, an argument.
Yeah.
You need to find the top 3, top 5, however many you decide. And number 1, it needs to start off with the ownership. You need to sit down and say, hey, I've noticed when this happens, it makes me feel this way. And I think that if I did this, I wouldn't feel as offended when you did this. Don't blame the other person. You need to come into that conversation with a way to fix it, and maybe not blaming that way on the other person, because then the other person's in defense.
Absolutely.
Like, sit down and say, hey, I don't like it when I come home and the dishes aren't done. And next time it happens, maybe I can help you with the dishes or whatever. And I just don't like dishes in the sink. So what we can do is I'm going to come home, if they're not done, say, hey, let me unload the dishwasher while you load it or whatever. Let me help you with it. And maybe it starts to just click a little bit better. But take some ownership, and maybe you can help out with that situation that irritates you, so the other person's realizing what's going on. Don't just blame, because it's going to turn into a fight. And you want to turn it into a fight, just make sure that you have a way to come through it before you say, hey, I don't like it when you come home and I come home and the dishes aren't done. That other person maybe takes offense because something may happen during the day that they couldn't get to it. Have a solution and be able to take some ownership in even the things you're doing wrong, or say, hey, one of the things could be, if you're the wife, okay, and you could put one of your issues as, hey, you know what, I've noticed that when I don't do the dishes, it makes you feel this way, or you don't like it when I do the dishes. And I could say, yeah, I don't like dishes in the sink. It's just kind of a pet peeve of mine. And you could say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to work at having those done, twice a week, or make sure it's loaded, or make sure the dishes are in the dishwasher, and I'll do the dishes, run the dishwasher every Friday or whatever. I'm going to try to do that a little better because I notice it irritates you. And then I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate the fact that you noticed it. Maybe I notice that you don't like it when, we go back to taking the garbage out. I'm going to really try that. You maybe find the issues that you notice you're doing that irritates your partner and come up with a way that you're going to fix that instead of blaming the other person.
Yeah, it allows for a very open and honest conversation, and it makes it feel like it's productive. It's a productive conversation because
You're
you're,
not blaming anybody.
yeah, you're saying, I see this as a problem, and here's how I think I'm going to fix it. That takes a little bit of relief off of you. Oh, okay, they want to change. They
Okay.
want to
Now
make this
maybe,
different, so maybe I can help.
yeah, I can do the same thing in the other direction, and
Yeah.
make it productive. Don't throw names, blame each other and all that kind of stuff, because this isn't a type of thing you want to do to create more problems. You're trying
No.
to fix problems, not create them.
Yeah, and if you feel, let's say you start your list and you talk about it and you only get to number 1 and you both start getting angry, stop.
Stop and walk
Stop.
away from
Yep.
it.
Yeah, come back at another time when you say, okay, well, we were having that conversation. It went this way.
So if it does, then maybe next time you sit down, that's when you realize, hey, what did I do? I blamed you. Okay, this time we're going to sit down and say, hey, look, I noticed this happens when I do this. I'm going to fix it by doing this. Take the ownership of the problem yourself and try to fix it, because obviously it turned into a blame game. That's why it got heated. That's why it got an argument. That's why you guys got mad. So if it happens, just get up and walk away. Have the conversation in an hour. Cool down. Have it the next day, whatever. But don't argue about it. Don't get me wrong. Arguing's not unhealthy for a relationship. You're going to have arguments. It's just the way it works. But don't argue about this stuff, because this is stuff you're supposed to be trying to fix and help your relationship so that you're not falling apart. So it seemed to have worked for us, and so hopefully it works for you.
Yeah, we don't want to compound your problems. We want to help solve them. And I think the only way to do that is to have these open and honest conversations with your significant other to have a better life. So we hope these top mistakes that we've made in ours and ways to fix them helped you. We hope you take that challenge and do this with your significant other.
And if you need some help with it, I guess I could recommend reading a book by Jocko Willink. It's called Extreme Ownership, and it equates to everything you do in your life. It started with him in the military, goes to corporate, and goes to home life. And it's all about taking ownership of those, whatever responsibility it is, so that it doesn't turn into an argument. So it's a great book. Grab it, read it. It's on ebook too, so hopefully you can, if you don't need it, you don't need it, but maybe it gives you a little bit of help.
Yeah, I think in another episode we'll probably go a little bit more in depth on just that one, because we had a fantastic time listening to that book, and Jocko's just an awesome person to look up to and to take his advice on. So yeah, with that, we hope we helped you out, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.